Welcome back to the Wizards of Amazon podcast, your weekly blueprint for explosive success. I'm Carlos Alvarez, full-time successful Amazon seller and organizer of the largest Amazon seller meetup group in the world. Let's do this. Welcome to the Wizards of Amazon podcast, where we cover all things private label. My name is Carlos Alvarez. I will be your host for the show. On today's episode, I have a very special guest, Emma Schermer Tamir. Emma, what's going on?
Hi, Carlos. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Emma, you have an amazing business. You're an amazing person. You're going to be speaking at Online Seller Cruise, I guess representing Marketing by Emma, your company. You excited for the cruise?
I am super excited. I'm excited to meet people in person for a change. I was reminiscing on last year and all the conferences that I was at. This time last year, I was in China, and now I'm like, China. Wow, that was another lifetime ago.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm wondering how it's going to be for, I consider myself an introvert, and I'm craving for the first time ever, to just go out and speak to people, which is a little abnormal for me. What about you? You're an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm a total introvert, and I have found that while I crave that, I feel like my awkwardness has just been amplified to a whole new level. I've met friends in a socially responsible way from time to time. And I feel like every time I see them, fortunately, they're my friends, so they're not judging me too badly. But I'm just like, okay, my little bit of social skills that I have completely gone out the window. I think I need to take a course or something, like how to be a new normal human in social situations.
I hear you. Yeah, I have a feeling people are going to there was a Seinfeld episode where somebody tapped their head and that man help me out of this situation. This guy won't stop talking. I don't know. So that might be me on the cruise.
Fortunately, my husband, who's also my business partner, he is an extrovert. And I must say, as an introvert to marry an extrovert, it is fantastic, because whenever I get kind of fatigued, I can just sit back and let him carry the conversation, and I don't have to worry about anything. So he's fantastic for many reasons, but that's definitely an added perk.
For sure. Yeah, that's great chemistry. Emma, what we were chatting before the show, before we hit record, and there was a lot of different topics we could have covered, all really focusing in on your magical talent with words. The topic we wind up settling on is branding with copy, or branding with words. And I have to admit, I feel really good at writing copy. I write a lot of amazing Amazon copy, but branding with words, I feel is something I'm about to classes in session. You're about to do it. I'm eager to learn. I know with design, I know about branding guidelines, but in none of these branding guidelines booklets do I ever remember a section on branding yourself with copy. Can you, for people that don't know you, that don't know Marketing by Emma, which they should know you, and hopefully they'll meet you on the cruise, but can you introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about Marketing by Emma and what is branding with words?
Sure. So I co-founded Marketing by Emma in 2016 with my husband, Erez. And what we specialize in is helping online businesses connect with and ultimately, hopefully, convert their dream customers. So whether that be website copy or Amazon listings, figuring out how can we really make you stand out, communicate those things that people need to know, and not only make a one-time sale, but hopefully also begin to foster relationships so that people want to keep coming back. They want to tell other people about you, and they really become something more than just a customer. So when it comes to branding with words, you're right. Most of the time when people are talking about branding, they talk about visual. About, okay, what are your colors and what's your logo, and how is this all going together, and how are we representing this visually? But especially when you have an online business, but really especially in this day and age where everybody's online, even if their business wasn't primarily an online business, how you present yourself with words is also a really big part of that picture. It's very easy to read something and instantly get an idea of who that person is. Anything from an email that's just a one-on-one email, to a website, to any other piece of writing, social media, whatever that is. And so everything that you're putting out there to represent you or your business is contributing to this idea of who you are as a brand. And if you're not thoughtful about it, then you may be presenting yourself in a way that you don't want to, or you may just not even be having a cohesive story. That it's not that it's bad, but people are getting a different impression of you depending upon where they're looking at your content and what you or an employee was thinking or feeling on any given day.
Okay. And what about, what do you, that's a lot to unpack. Okay. Where do you see most brands getting this wrong? And what would you say to, like, for example, look, all I need is, a reverse ASIN search. I need to scrape my competitors' keywords, pull out scribbles, and that's all I need. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I think there's nothing wrong with the importance, and it's not just that there's nothing wrong. In order to be successful on Amazon, you need a very clear keyword strategy to have a well thought through plan of what to do to be successful, both from an algorithm perspective and how to play the Amazon game. However, if you're wanting to establish something more than that, than just having a few successful product listings, then the importance of branding becomes something that you really want to be thinking about. Whether it's because you feel vulnerable with only having your eggs in the Amazon basket, or whether because you do just have greater ambitions and you want to build something with longevity, and you understand that a big part of that is helping to create those relationships rather than just being that thing that somebody bought on Amazon because it had the best reviews or the cheapest price and they don't even know who made it. So if somebody wants a recommendation, they're like, I don't know, just search, anti-dog barking device. And I think it was the top one. So that's not a brand. That's just winning the pricing game. It's also really limiting, Amazon, the landscape has changed a lot, even just in a few years. And so pretty much any category, yes, pretty much any category that you're selling in, it's going to be pretty fierce competition. And so if you're just trying to compete when it comes to the keywords and kind of playing that Amazon game, you're really limiting yourself. When you start to figure out this branding piece, then you can actually make the decision about more than just who has the cheapest price or who has the most reviews. And it can be about something that maybe connects with somebody's values. Like a really great example of this is, are you familiar with Black Rifle Coffee Company?
Absolutely.
So, when you think of them, you know exactly who they are and you know who their customers are. They're a veteran owned company and they're really proud about that. And they make it a very strong focus of how they present themselves, whether it's on their website or even on Amazon. And if you look at their listings, there's actually very little content about their coffee. Especially with their A+ content, it is really focused on presenting who they are as a brand. And so the conversation isn't just about, okay, I want the best tasting coffee anymore. The conversation is about, I love supporting veteran-owned businesses, and this is a really important value to me, and this is something that I can get excited about, and this is a company that I'm already pumped, and I already know it's going to taste amazing before it even gets to my door, and then I have those positive expectations, so my experience is most likely going to be more positive, and then I'm going to want to tell other people about it, and I'm going to be brand loyal, and I'm not just going to go search, small batch coffee on Amazon. I'm going to search Black Rifle Coffee Company on Google because I want them to be my coffee of choice.
You are on fire. I'm trying to keep up with the questions I want to ask on what you're doing.
Sorry.
You are on fire. I'm the one drinking the Bang energy drink. I feel like you're beating me here. Hold on. Okay. So I'm getting ready all my cool questions on the example. Can you give? And you went right into it. So Black Rifle, amazing company. Absolutely amazing. But it seems that they had already established themselves, and is it fair to say brand voice and the copy and what we're talking about here is synonymous?
I would say that's one expression of the voice. So it's not the only way that it's expressed. Obviously, the copy is a big part of it, but you want to think about all of those other touch points that customers may have, whether they're interacting with your customer service because they have a question or they had an issue with their order, how your product is arriving, if it has an insert, talking about how to brew it, or a picture of the actual person that roasted it, or whatever the case may be. All of those things are working together to contribute to what the voice of your brand is and how the identity that you've created. In some ways, your brand is a being in the world, and it's all working together to paint a picture. And the question is, you controlling that, and are you being deliberate, or are you just kind of picking and choosing tactics and things at random in the hopes that it's going to be in line with this trick that you saw somebody speak about, or this thing that you read about that you saw was working really well 3 years ago, or whatever the case may be.
Well said. So Black Rifle Coffee, it seems that they figured out their copy branding off Amazon first. And I've looked at their Amazon listing. I've purchased from them for a bunch of reasons. Like you said, I wanted to support what they were about. I'm a huge coffee drinker, so I just feel like I need to try everything. But I felt like, looking at it from like an Amazon SEO copy person, looking at it, it almost felt like their listing was missing the typical keywords you would try to approach when you were trying to rank a listing. So do you think they were able to get away with that? First of all, if you agree, and second, do you think they were able to get away with that because their copy branding more than made up for that?
I do think that there is something to be said for the fact that they're able to get away with things that other companies may not be able to. Because I agree. I look at their listing, and it's not just that that maybe their keyword strategy is a little bit wonky. Like, even they have really long bullets, and some of those things that we've just found right now don't work like they used to, and like they may not be the best approach. But I think there's something to be said for the understanding that you can excite Amazon's algorithm all you want, but what ultimately matters is if you're making sales.
Sure.
So, if you're able to be converting people, then Amazon is going to want to put you in front of more people. So it's some of those things that it can be perhaps a substitute for, like having those longer bullets that aren't as appealing, because they are able to touch on those emotions and some of those things that a lot of other companies aren't doing, that are just kind of, you look at a lot of coffee listings on Amazon, and it feels like you could just copy and paste the brand name from one to the other. They just, they lack an energy, they lack a perspective. And they're just sort of like, energize your day or celebrate your coffee ritual, but that's sort of it. So they're replaceable with each other. But this is creating something distinctive. It's talking about something more than coffee. And so I think that goes a long way in maybe allowing them to miss out on some things, but still be successful, because they rank quite well with a lot of their coffees. Yes. So, it's they seem to know what they're doing, and it's paying off for them.
Yeah, in a ridiculously competitive category. I know Death Wish very well. I'm close friends with Jamie Martis, the owner of Coffee Cult. So I'm very familiar. Some of my brands are in that space, and it's ridiculously competitive. Like, what they've done is amazing. I love their brand, and they have good coffee. I have to say, grudgingly admit, they have good coffee. This conversation really reminds me of, I don't know if you've met Craig Mount from Classy Brain. He recently presented in our meetup group, and he has a brand called Nerdy Nuts. It's this flavored peanut butter. You hear him talk. You and him are just like twins. It seems like, on how you're talking and what he's done to like build a brand through copy. By the end of it, I could taste his peanut butter. I was like babe, we're to my wife, like, babe, we're this is the peanut butter we're eating now. And we have, pumpkin spice peanut butter that's on the way. And I had never tried it. So he was able to pull that off through his copy and just speaking with him. What would you say to somebody that's, approaching this and starting a new brand and they feel that, well, my product is too boring, or there's nothing that my product is not as exciting as coffee. How would somebody approach this?
So I think the first mistake there is thinking about it in terms of product. This is about more than just the product. This is about what you're really trying to create in the world and the sort of future that you want to live in. And maybe that sounds a little kind of overly
fluffy.
Yeah, but there's something to be said for that. And I think especially, with Amazon, people will say, oh, well, you need to tell your brand story. And so then they're like, okay, well, I don't really have a story, so I'll make one up. And it'll be, I was looking for X product, couldn't find one that was good enough, so I decided to create my own. Now, it is true that a lot of businesses start that way, but it's a little bit overly simplistic. And a lot of times, especially if that's just kind of created and not actually having truth to it, then it lacks that substance and that depth that people are going to really, kind of congregate around. And so how I feel is that your story doesn't just have to be about what happened in the past. Your story can also be what you want to create. So whether, you're somebody like Zappos, they sell shoes, but they're successful and everybody uses them as case studies to speak about their incredible customer service. So the product is a means for them to be able to do what they're really good at. And so you don't have to be so limited when you're thinking about some things like that. And your best friend with all of this work is curiosity. And I think that's something that people maybe don't feel as comfortable doing as they should, but just asking lots of questions, looking around, whether it's the virtual space that you're in, going down a rabbit hole on Reddit or in other forums or Facebook groups, and sort of starting to get a sense of, how do people talk in this space? What do people care about? What are people excited about? Who are the influencers that people are following? And doing that same sort of curiosity work for yourself. So why did you start this business? What are you trying to create? And even if it's not something that you're necessarily speaking about outwardly, you have that information that you can use to align the choices that you're making and the language that you're using. And it can also be quite unifying when you start to have a team of people and you want to make sure that everybody is on the same page and representing the business in a way that is in line with your vision.
I'm 100% on board with what you're saying. And I know the power of it. I strive to do it in my brands. For somebody listening to this, though, I want to like speak for them right now. And the question, if I don't ask this, they're going to be like, how come you didn't ask? So it sounds expensive. So if I'm a new brand and I have a budget, and say like, it's obviously much cheaper to crank out some competitor keywords crafted in the back end and on the front end, and my bullets are just right. Creating this voice sounds like a process, and it sounds expensive. What would you say to somebody like that? You must hear that.
I would say this is definitely something that you can do and you should do, even if you're hiring people to write your website or, do your imagery and things like that. Having clear ideas about these things and being able to present that to the people you're hiring is going to make it much more likely that they're able to create things that are in line with your vision. Because creative work is something where there are infinite right answers. It's not that it's a situation where the only way that you can write about this product is this way. And so if you have these ideas in your head, but you're not articulating that, then it can actually be more expensive, because maybe then you end up having to go to a few people because the first person, they didn't get it, and then somebody else. And so this is work that the only thing it costs you is time. And it's also not something that you ever finish, so it's not something that you say, okay, I've figured this out and that's it. Your brand, because it is sort of this identity, in the world. It's going to grow and evolve in the same way that people do. And so these are questions that are worth revisiting on a regular basis and making sure that they are still matching what it is that you're wanting to do today. Because, I mean, how many times, like if I were to think back to the very beginning of our business, I had very different expectations of what that was going to look like than how I do now. And even just 6 months or a year can have a massive impact on what your business looks like and where you're wanting to take it. And so being able to sort of check in and make sure that those things still make sense for the goals that you have and where you're heading is so important.
Agreed. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, I think people hear these things and it can be kind of intimidating and overwhelming. Like, okay, well, but how am I really supposed to do that? These are like those deep questions that keep you up at night, but you can't necessarily articulate with words. A really fun exercise that you can do is to create a brand persona. And so you can find ways of describing some of those things that you may not be able to explain as easily in full sentences. So actually thinking about your brand as a person. So like, what kind of clothing would they wear, and what sense of humor do they have, and what are their favorite TV shows to watch? And that just in knowing about other people, that as you start to learn more about that, you start to get a more complete picture of who they are. And it can be both really fun and incredibly helpful when you're trying to figure out some of these pieces.
Agreed. It sounds almost identical, is it fair to say, as creating an avatar, I guess another word, a persona, an avatar. That's something that's always, I've sat down and created avatars for all of my companies, all of my products, like you're saying. It's not something I feel that you sit down. I feel a lot of people feel like, let me sit down, during my lunch break, I'm just going to eat and I'm just going to knock this out. It's not, it seems like it's simple, but it's not easy. How do you what's the best way to, you have any best practices on how to approach that? Because I've even seen templates that say, enter your person's name. Are they married? And it seems fill in the blank simple, but then it's like, I don't know. How do I know? Is my product married? And I don't, where did my product go to school? How do you answer them?
I think part of it is understanding that it's okay for that to change. It's not about, this is going to become plated in gold and unchangeable. We have this aversion to changing our minds that I think is such a disservice to people. Why do you want to be stuck in one viewpoint if you are getting all of this input that's telling you this is not working for you? And so I think you can get really stuck in trying to kind of say, okay, this is the absolute right answer. But, if somebody isn't married, they can always get married. And
Sure.
In reverse, if somebody is married and that marriage isn't working, then they may get a divorce. And so that's a really easy way to feel some of that resistance and allow that to keep you from even just tiptoeing in. Because also I think what will happen is, as you begin to answer these questions for yourself, it'll all start to build on each other. And so then you can look back at it and say, you know what, that doesn't really make sense that I said this thing. And so as you're filling in the pieces, then you start to see how they all work together, and you start to get a better sense of where you should be answering those different questions.
Awesome. Help me out with this. So let's say that, well, how about, before I get to that, without saying a brand name, because I know how that is, without saying a brand name or anything too specific, or do you have any examples of, an example of somebody, say, that came to you and they're just like throwing themselves at Marketing by Emma's feet, and they're like, I need help here, I don't know what I'm doing. And that you've been able to take them from that position to a successful place on Amazon? Do you have an example of something, like maybe 50,000 foot view?
Yeah. So there are a few. The one that's just instantly coming to mind is a company that was already experiencing quite a bit of success on Amazon. And so they were actually a little bit hesitant to even work with us, but we'd met them at an event and they were curious just about what we do and kind of wanted to give it a shot and see what would happen. And they sell in the cosmetic space, which is both holds immense opportunity and is also incredibly challenging and cutthroat.
Brutal.
Yes. And now we do all of their copy. They're exploring getting into brick and mortar and retail and they're able to put together these little emails and sheets that you need in order to do those things with these incredible numbers that they've been able to achieve despite a pandemic, largely due to the copy that we've created for them. And so a lot of that was even just kind of refining how they presented themselves and made sure that it made sense for their particular product and their category, but like even more specific to that. So beauty is the larger category, but they have their own space within that. And I think one of the traps that a lot of people fall into on Amazon is they see these top performers and they say, okay, they obviously know what they're doing. I'm just going to gracefully copy them by, making sure that my bullets talk about the exact same things, but like the wording, right? The wording is different enough that nobody could call them out for stealing intellectual property. And the problem with that, if you don't have a distinctive perspective, all you're doing is you're kind of diluting yourself and you're trying to go head to head with the fiercest competitor that is already winning such a big share of things. You're entering into a sparring competition with the very best top fighter in your space. And you may be able to win that. However, you could fight really, really hard, which is going to probably also be expensive. Or you could figure out what makes you different and help to expand the conversation. And in doing so, you can actually create this new competitive space that didn't really exist before. And it may not have anything to do with the raw details of the product itself. And so, I think that's one of the really big challenges when selling on Amazon is people say, okay, well, my product's not different. In fact, my product may be coming from the exact same manufacturer. So how can I possibly do anything to really differentiate myself? And that's where some of these branding exercises that we've spoken about, where you can really change that conversation and make it about something a little bit different that people may be looking for, but haven't been able to find yet. And so in doing that, you can start to make your way up and even eventually get to the point where you're going head to head with some of those top competitors. But by the time you get there, you've amassed your own following and you have a good amount of reviews and it's a different game because you've had all that training and that preparation to go head to head with the top fighter.
Makes perfect sense. Emma, what does it look like for somebody to because I want to keep these episodes digestible, and it seems like I'm definitely going to be inviting you back to cover more of the branding copy off of Amazon. But what does it look like for now for somebody in the Amazon space that, they've really connected to what you've said, or they've been trying to find that right person to get their copy brand down pat? What does it look like to work with you? Like I contact you on the website and I say what?
Hey, we want your help. No, it depends. So
no, but how do we get started?
I guess some of that will depend upon.
Go for it.
Yeah. So first of all, I would say with anybody that you're working with, and what's really great about the world that we live in today is dip your toe in before going full throttle. So I think, a lot of people, they're like, I want to launch a new website and I want to reinvigorate all of my listings and this and this and this and this. And starting things that way is a good way to kind of get lost in the details of things and get stuck without really taking action. So the best way of working together is to figure out what's a great project or a few projects for us to start with so that you can get to know us, we can get to know you, and we can start to develop that working relationship. Because it's also true that, everybody is looking for different things when they're hiring somebody. And so obviously you want the work to be really great, but you also want to make sure that these people match what you want and need in a service provider. So for us, things that are just as important as making sure that our copy is great is also that we're really responsive when people have questions, and that we are completely deadline driven. So we will 100% make sure that if we tell you a date, that you're getting your project by that date. But some of those things you only really learn by actually seeing them in action. So people can say nice things, but it's easy to say those things. It's much harder to actually embody those things. And the same is true for your own branding. Just to kind of bring it back to what we're talking about, is you can say all of these words, but at the end of the day, if what you're saying doesn't actually match up to the customer experience that they have, whether they have problems with your product, whether the product arrives and it's nothing at all like what you described it as, then the very best branding in the world can't make up for that.
Yeah, so you can't just say I have amazing customer service on your website, but then have bad customer service, or like everything needs to line up. Your email, your website, Amazon, everything needs to line up.
Right. It's better to under promise and over deliver. That's kind of a cliche that I think has a lot of substance to it. And I think, unfortunately, people get it mixed up and they do it the other way around, especially with marketing writing. And particularly if you don't have experience doing it yourself, I think you can fall into, I like to call it the late night infomercial speak. So everything is the best and the most innovative. And, you shouldn't actually say that about your product if it's not true. If it is innovative, then definitely talk about that. But if you're just saying it's innovative because you think it makes you sound impressive and cool, but it's not at all innovative, it's just a, garlic press at the end of the day, then, you don't have to say that. And you can find other ways to still excite your customers without maybe making promises that you can't uphold.
Is one of the things you offer too, if someone wants to work with you, the building up of that brand persona and that avatar?
We don't offer that, just because, a lot of those are questions that you really need to ask yourself, and we can't get into your head necessarily. But what we do have is, I have a free worksheet, marketingbyemma.com/wizards, that people can go and sign up for. And that has a lot of questions that you can use as a springboard to jump off and to do some of these deeper curiosity exercises, not just in figuring out who you are as a brand, but also who your customers are, who your competitors are, and where you can really find that space to do something different and to be unique.
I love it. Lots of goodies. I want to be respectful of your time. Can you share the best way for listeners to be able to get in contact with you?
Sure. So our website, marketingbyemma.com, is a great place to reach out. We also offer free listing analyses there. So if you're not sure if your Amazon listing is doing what it needs to do, you can go to marketingbyemma.com/free analysis, fill out a short form, and we'll get back to you with some feedback about things that we think you could be doing better with your listing. We're also on Facebook at Marketing by Emma, and pretty much all the places. Email hello@marketingbyemma is going to be the swiftest way to get a response. And we are happy to help you with your marketing writing, or answer your questions, or do whatever we can to help you find the person that will help you if we're not the right people.
I love it, Emma. Thank you. You've been amazing. Before I let you go, though, the question I like to ask everyone who is a guest, what is your favorite book and why?
I feel like this is the most impossible question that you can possibly ask me. We were chatting a little bit before we started recording, and you were saying what a reader you are, and I am too. Like, my day is a bad day if I don't get at least 20 minutes to sit down with a cup of coffee and a book. I just feel like it really kind of gets my head right, and it's that little bit of time to myself that I can use to fuel me through the day. And with that said, I don't know that I have a favorite book. So I'm going to kind of reflect on a few of the books that I've read over the last year that have been really impactful for me.
Oh, that's fair.
Is that okay? And
yeah,
I'm going to say, I'll say a few.
No, so, Norman Farrar, you probably know. Norman Farrar dropped like 4 of them. So go ahead.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm not the only one. I feel like like with books, like there's the book that just like was your favorite childhood book. And then there's the book that was really inspirational for business. There's just so many books that fill so many roles. So this year, a few books that have really stood out to me. One is called Thinking Fast and Slow. And it is a fantastic book if you're interested in human psychology. From whatever perspective. So if you're looking at it as a tool for business, there are some incredibly insightful and eye-opening thoughts to contemplate. If you're just wanting to understand how your brain sometimes gets in your own way and even pushes you to make bad decisions in your personal life, it's also really fantastic for that as well. So that's definitely been one of my favorite books from all of this year. But there are a couple of other books that I read more recently that are, I guess, they're sort of in that same vein. So one is The Body, and that is fascinating. It actually goes through your whole body, and it talks about all the things that we know about it and how it functions, and all the things that we don't know about and how it functions. And I just think that sometimes we get so, again, not to get too, kind of big, but that's just how I am and where my mind goes. But, I think especially with so many things going on in the world, and there are terrible things going on, there are wonderful things going on, but we kind of spend a lot of our time living in our minds. And it's worthwhile to reflect upon the fact that we're all just kind of this combination of cells, and how, first of all, miraculous it is that all of that somehow works together. And it's also just fascinating to know that despite the fact that we've explored space, assuming that you believe that we've gone to space, yes, and, some of those other things, there's still so much that we don't know about the very basic functions of being a human being. And I just think that's really interesting.
That's awesome. I think I've read Thinking Fast and Slow. Was the author Kaufman?
Yes.
Yes, I read it. It was a great book. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really good. It's like one of those books that I was just like wanting to underline everything, because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's, it talks about everything from the fallacy of sunk costs, and when gambling, like when certain kinds of gambles are worth taking versus not taking. So it really has multiple levels that you can read it from, whether you want to understand yourself better, whether you want to understand the people in your life better, whether you want to make better business choices, whether you want to make your marketing that much more effective because you understand how people's minds work. It's really a very interesting book.
I love it. Emma, you were amazing. I'm definitely going to impose on your time to have you back on the show so we can talk about branding copy off of Amazon, which I think is extremely important. Anybody that loved, hopefully everybody that loved this episode, remember, Emma will be presenting on Online Seller Cruise. So all of your questions, she can't even run from you for a week. Like, she's stuck on the ship with you for a week. So you get to like strike up a great relationship, ask all of your copy and branding questions. She can't escape. So, and there's drink passes and there's all kind of cool stuff. So Emma, I look forward to officially meeting you. I guess it's going to be like the pre-party before, like the night before the cruise, I'm assuming. And thank you so much for being on the show. It was amazing. You're on fire. I look forward to having you back, and have an awesome day.
Thank you so much, Carlos. This was awesome, and you would not be imposing at all. I look forward to creating more content with you, and of course, participating in the awesome Online Sellers Cruise this January.
I love it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Liked what you heard and want to stay connected? Join our Facebook group or find me anywhere on social media at Wizards of Amazon, or text the word Amazon to 69922.